Welcome to the Nourish and Restore podcast with me, Nina, and my awesome friend, Nicole, where we bring all things nourishing and restorative to you, your body, mind, and soul. A chance for you to enjoy simple tools to help you live a happier, healthier, and more peaceful life. Join us in conversation as we explore our interesting theme for today.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our podcast series with myself, Nicole Angelica Panza, and my awesome partner in health and wellness, the great Nina Sachs. Hi, Nina. How's the side?
Hi, Nicole. Lovely to. What's that?
I said take five.
Take five. Yeah, this does feel like take five. All good this side. We are busy preparing for a little bit of a working holiday out in Dubai in Israel. We leave on Thursday. So we're getting all our stuff together, which is fun. And you, my friend, how are things your side?
Good, thank you. As you can see, I have a change of scenery behind me. I'm in my beautiful space in Austria, but now in our beautiful space in Cape Town at my parents'. We had an amazing holiday in Croatia, which was well needed, well deserved. I can see my tan is fading. But yes, happy to be in Cape Town with the family and seeing some friends while I'm here. So what is our theme of the month? I think it's quite interesting, you know, how we always tend to choose topics, even when we were doing the chakras. It was always so well planned, you know, and with the fear topic, which is the topic of the month, being fear, it was really interesting how when landing in Cape Town, you know, there's that excitement. Oh, wow, I haven't been here for 3 years. That's so exciting. And then as we drove into town, it was just so like, you know, I felt my body kind of like tighter. And obviously not having had that feeling of having to worry about, oh, is my car locked? Or are my windows up? You know, driving in town or just simply look over your shoulders. It's quite sad actually to realize how we've been living and how many are still living, you know, in the state of fear, possibly not even knowing about it, because you know, even when I moved to Austria, I think the first year that I was there, I realized that I was dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, you know, from constantly having to be
From being in chronic
stress. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so interesting topic.
So interesting topic, yeah, and it seems that you're definitely in the right space for that. And you know, the same thing here with you know, living on a farm in Mozambique. There is a constant amount of stress and fear and anxiety that all seem to be around on a regular basis, because you never really know what the story is. And fear in itself, you know, is not a bad thing. It's a good thing, because we need it as part of survival. We've needed that, you know, over centuries with evolution. We've had to have this instinct for survival. So, you know, if a lion comes to chase us, if there's a bear or a snake, or, you know, is there a poisonous insect, you know, we need to know how to react to it. And our bodies do this through like a whole set of functions. Firstly, you know, when there is a stimulus, a fearful stimulus, be it like a physical fear, mental and emotional come in as well. It sets off a response in our amygdala, in our brain. And that leads to affecting our nervous system. Precisely, pretty much the sympathetic nervous system, which gives us that fight, flight, or fear zone. Can see you moving there a little. Kind of sets that off. Like, you know, do we need to fight something that's coming towards us? Do we need to, you know, freeze and whatever the story is, or fight, flight, or freeze. Exactly, those are the three. But what also happens is that the stress hormone of cortisol gets released from our adrenal glands. Plus, we also get adrenaline pumped into the system. And what cortisol does is that it helps to kind of like curb all the non-essential functions of the body, so that really you're able to take action in that moment with what you need to do. Do you need to freeze? Do you need to run for your life? Or do you really need to kind of like muster up the power to like now fight? So like it affects our breathing, it affects our digestion, like, you know, the energy in the blood that's gone to digestion now goes to your muscles, so that you know, the muscles have got more energy and power. And this is all great when it's, you know, there's an immediate fear or something that is wanting our attention or needing our attention. The problem, like you were addressing, kind of like being back in Cape Town, and what you're realizing is when we're in this constant loop cycle of fear, and we don't even realize it, and then that gets us to this level of chronic stress. And like last month, we were talking about chronic inflammation or silent inflammation, and it's the same kind of thing. It's just this chronic stress leads to chronic inflammation, pretty much the same thing. And if we constantly have like this adrenaline in our system, like these adrenaline surges in our system, it's going to affect our blood vessels, our arteries. It's going to increase our blood pressure. That's what leads to heart, you know, diseases, the strokes, and those kind of things. And the thing is, when that happens, our level of cortisol again increases. And when there's just this excess of cortisol in our system, when it's not able to down regulate, that's actually when we start putting on weight, and we get like the muffin tops and things like that. And that's why often people who, you know, all of a sudden you've kind of like gone through your 30s, you're getting into your 40s, and you're realizing there's like a little extra padding, but you haven't really changed anything. You might be eating really well, you might be exercising really well, but the amount of stress in your environment or in your system, because of those heightened levels of hormones in your system, is actually what is causing that additional weight. Could be one of the reasons. So now, wasn't stressful enough to get you to wrap your mind around. I'm sure you've got something else that you can add in there as well, Nicole.
Yeah, you know, I think that's why it's so important for us to really make sure our environment is, you know, in a place where we feel safe in, you know. And if we are living in a place such as South Africa, or I'm sure there are other areas in the world as well, where one has this constant stress and fear that is hanging over one, to really make sure that you have time out to recuperate. Because like with anything, our body is able to cope with so much, you know, but if there's an overload of too much of anything, we need to pull ourselves away from it in order for us to be able to recuperate our system, in order for us to move back into a state of balance and health, for us to be able to, you know, function properly on all levels of our being, you know, physically being able to function properly, mentally and emotionally, because it, you know, causes such a huge strain on the whole system. And you can really, once you really become aware of your body and the signs and the symptoms, and once you really can feel into the different types of messages the body is trying to send you, you notice it immediately, you know. Like I said before, as I was driving into town, it was an immediate like freeze up, my whole body. Now we needed to be more aware of our surroundings, we needed to be more aware of what was going on. So it's really interesting to have had that experience, you know, not having been here for 3 years. It was really interesting. You know, there are so many different levels of symptoms, of causes, of reactions. And as you said, fear is such an important part of our life, because if we have fear, we wouldn't know that thing, whether it's an immediate danger or whether it's a danger that's kind of lurking around all the time, or even future danger. A lot of people aren't necessarily in constant fear, but they are in future fear, which is more about, where will they be? How will their life be in a couple of years' time? So I'm really looking forward to our chats, our interviews, and you being able to share your insights with our audience, and likewise on my side, and always giving our tips and tricks.
Exactly. Yeah. And kind of like what I want to address, because you brought it in really nicely with what you've just been saying, is that there are so many different layers and levels of fear. And I actually came across this really interesting article by Carl Albrecht. And what he was saying is that they're pretty much like 5 levels of fear. And the one is kind of like this level of extinction, where we have like this fear of death. It's the same kind of fear you get when you've got like fear of heights, where everything kind of like closes up. And then the second one he was talking about is like this fear of mutilation, which sounds quite intense, but it's kind of like this fear of like losing body parts. But it's where we have the fear of animals or insects and snakes and that kind of thing, because, we're scared that we're going to lose, or it's going to affect a certain part of our body. And then there's this fear of loss of autonomy, where we have this fear of like maybe being immobilized or paralyzed. It's kind of like where people who suffer from claustrophobia, it's kind of like the basis of that fear. And also kind of like the fear of kind of like not being part of a group, like being what's the word called, like when you're thrown out of a group. So people struggle with like social interactions in that sense. And then the fourth one he was talking about is this fear of separation, which I think a lot of kids and children feel, especially those who've maybe been like orphaned or abandoned, because there's this fear of like rejection or abandonment, that you're not actually wanted. And then this final fear that kind of like comes up that he talks about is this like ego death, where there's a fear of being humiliated or shamed or disapproved. And it's kind of like affects our integrity as a person. And that's where kind of like, are we worthy? Are we capable? Are we lovable? All comes up and arises. So kind of like fear is not just like you were saying, it's not just physically based, the fear of like, is there going to be physical harm to us? But it's also affecting our mind and our emotions. They're all interlinked. So I just thought I'd pretty much bring that doom and gloom story in, that that fear, no matter like where we are in the world, actually affects all of us, but it may be in different percentages. Like being back in South Africa or Cape Town, you've got more of this fear of there maybe being bodily harm to you, whereas maybe kind of like being in Austria or something like that, there's more of this fear of like separation from like family, or separation of the ego. And just because it's a different level of fear doesn't mean that there's not fear within the system. But the good news is that we're going to be sharing our tips and tricks with them how to navigate this fear, because fear is not to be not to be shied away from, or to be scared about, or threatened by. It's something that we can actually, it's showing us something, and we can actually use it to our benefit if we know how.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's so important that you mentioned all those different levels of fear, because I think a lot of us don't actually realize what causes fear, and the states of fear, and the different levels of fear, because rightly so, they're all just as important as the other, because at the end of the day, fear gets perceived by the physical body and the energetic body, in the very same way, you know. But yeah, before we start handing out tips and tricks, I think that we can just wrap up this intro chat. I hope you guys are all going to be joining us. We will be interviewing each other, starting with Nina for next week, and then myself the week thereafter, and then wrapping all of that up with a beautiful Instagram live at the end of the month. Whoop, whoop. Hopefully it will go
we will
better.
try to do a better Instagram live than the last two.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think it's an interesting topic. Obviously, as per usual, we'd love to hear from you guys. We'd love to hear your stories, and just your feedback. And if you have anything to share with us, please just message and email us.
Lovely, 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 Nicole. Always good to connect, and look forward to catching up with you soon. Lots of love, my friend.
Lots of love. Bye. See you soon. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you for listening to Nourish and Restore podcasts today. To find out more about Nourish and Restore, visit our website or Facebook page, nourishandrestore.yoga. For more information on working with Nina Sachs, visit www.yogaaa.co.za. And to work with me, Nicole Angelica Panther, visit www.lov-me.com. Links will be in the show notes. We look forward to catching up with you next week. Namaste and have a nourishing day.